Shane, gripping a woman's hands tightly with both of his, whispered, "I'll make you happy, for my late wife's sake, too." I was completely lost for words. Shane, who was supposed to be on a company trip, was right here. Moreover, he had lied and was proposing to another woman. To my astonishment, that woman was Agnes, a classmate from high school. "You prankster! I got my revenge," she exclaimed. "What do you mean by that?" I asked, bewildered. Agnes seemed consumed by hatred and resentment, perhaps stemming from some misunderstanding in high school. At that moment, when I didn't know what to do, Mom stepped in front of me and shouted, "Enough from both of you!" Shocked by Mom's sudden outburst, Shane and Agnes fell silent. Then Mom pulled an envelope from her bag. Inside were dozens of photographs. Mom had hired a private detective to keep a close watch on Shane. And so, Mom and I, unable to forgive Shane and Agnes for their affair, brought them down. I'm Macy, a 45-year-old civil servant and housewife. Losing Dad at a young age and raised by a single mother, I always longed for a happy marriage. My husband, Shane, 2 years older, is a swimming instructor at a sports club. Popular with the ladies because of his profession, people often worried that he might cheat on me. However, we had a strong watchdog at home. That watchdog was my mom, who lives with us. Turning 70 this year, Mom was a swimming instructor at the same workplace as Shane until 5 years ago. In fact, she was Shane's boss. I met Shane when I was in college, delivering something Mom forgot at work. It was love at first sight for me, and Shane seemed quite interested when I made the first move. We started dating and got engaged when I graduated. "Because of my job, I have irregular hours, so I want to settle down rather than be in a relationship," was his proposal. However, Mom didn't seem too happy about our marriage. So, we didn't have a wedding ceremony. I always wondered why Mom couldn't be happy for my happiness. But once we had a son, she was overjoyed at her grandson's birth. As a dual-income couple, we had a happy married life with Mom's nearby support. 3 years ago, we started living with Mom, 2 years after she retired. It was around the time our son graduated from high school and started living on his own. Mom suggested we move in with her at her house. That's when I noticed changes in Shane. Changes I probably wouldn't have seen on my own. After we started living with Mom, Shane began spending more time away from home. Perhaps he felt awkward around Mom, his former boss. Mom, who had lived independently and freely until then, suddenly wanted to live together, which honestly surprised me. There might be a deeper reason behind it. Mom continued visiting Shane's workplace as a member, even after retiring. I worried this might make Shane feel pressured both personally and professionally. "Mom, wouldn't it be better to go to a different sports facility for exercise?" I suggested gently. Mom, avoiding eye contact, replied, "No, I get a family discount there, and I know a lot of the members. It's always fun when I go." Mom's evasive manner made me feel like she was hiding something. "Mom, what's wrong? You've seemed off lately." "It's nothing. More importantly, Macy, have you been talking properly with Shane lately?" Her question made me think. Indeed, I realized that recently. Shane and I hadn't been talking much. Was Mom's distant behavior due to her concern about this? "Mom, were you worried about us?" "I'm sorry for making you worry, but it's okay." I reassured Mom, not wanting her to worry unnecessarily. Then, a few nights later, after taking a bath, I was heading to the bedroom when I heard voices in the living room. It was Mom and Shane talking. I was about to join them, but sensed a tense atmosphere and decided to listen from the door. Mom was asking Shane something in a hushed tone, inaudible to anyone else. "Are you really not involved with that woman?" Who was she referring to? Shane replied in an annoyed tone. Nothing's going on. Geez, mother-in-law, you're so suspicious. Really? I trust you. But remember, if you make Macy cry, I won't let it go. I sensed something from Mom's words. Maybe Shane was having an affair. That might explain why Mom had been acting like she was hiding something. Annoyed, Shane retorted, Enough already. There's nothing between her and me. Shh, keep your voice down. What if Macy hears? I felt like I had overheard something I shouldn't have. Quietly, I left without them noticing. The existence of her, mentioned by Shane, troubled me. I couldn't get it out of my head and suffered through days of agony. But life went on as if nothing happened. Or rather, I pretended I hadn't heard anything. At work, I often found myself lost in thought. My colleagues, noticing my lack of energy, expressed their concern. Even when asked, I couldn't confirm Shane's infidelity. So all I could say was, Sorry, I've been distracted. Several more months passed. Every year in June, the sports club where Shane works closes for 4 days for cleaning by contractors. During this closure, the staff go on a 2-night, 3-day company trip. Shane was unusually cheerful while preparing for this trip. Shane, you seem really excited. Are you looking forward to this trip so much? I asked. He jumped a little, startled. What? You surprised me, suddenly talking like that. Sorry about that. I hadn't spoken to him suddenly enough to warrant such a reaction. Perhaps our reduced conversations or timing issues were to blame. I didn't think too much about Shane's response. On the day of the trip, after Shane left early in the morning, Mom spoke to me. The company trip coincides with the weekend this year, Macy. Since your husband is away, why don't we, mother and daughter, enjoy ourselves for a change? That sounds good. Let's do that. Then Mom opened a flyer. It was for a fancy restaurant nearby. Actually, I've made a reservation for 2 for tomorrow night. Let's treat ourselves to a little luxury. I was surprised Mom had prepared all this. It was a restaurant I'd always wanted to try, so I was looking forward to it. But when the day came, I was about to witness an unbelievable scene. As we entered the restaurant, a waiter led us to our table. There was a secluded window table, partitioned off. There, in a familiar suit, was a man I recognized. It was Shane. Why was he here when he was supposed to be on a company trip far away? He hadn't noticed Mom and me yet. As I was about to call out to him, Mom firmly grabbed my arm and held me back. Looking closely, Shane was with someone, partially hidden by the partition and hard to see, but it seemed to be a woman. Shane was staring intently at her. Then he said something unbelievable. It's been 5 years since I lost my wife. Have you had a hard time? Are you starting to think about your own happiness now? The woman's voice could be heard. But whose wife had died? Yeah. So, would you consider marrying me? Shane asked. Me? Really? With your popularity, I thought you could have someone younger. No, you're the only one for me. Marry me. Shane proposed to her. Why? When he has a wife and me. The woman, overwhelmed with happiness, was audibly crying. If you're okay with me, I'd be delighted. Then Shane tightly gripped the woman's hands with both of his and whispered, I'll make you happy, for my late wife's sake. I was utterly confused. Looking at Mom, I saw her frowning deeply, glaring at Shane. I can't believe this, she muttered. It seemed Mom knew Shane would be here. The woman must be the one Mom had been questioning Shane about. Usually calm, Mom now wore an expression of fury I had never seen before. Then she suddenly stood up and approached Shane's table. What was she planning to do? I watched her actions anxiously. Incredibly, Mom reached for the chair next to Shane and asked, "May I sit here?" Shane, seeing Mom, recoiled in his chair. Linda! I almost burst out laughing at Shane's panic. He looked shocked, as if thinking, "Why is she here?" Mom then turned to the woman with Shane. "You're the one who joined the sports club for a short while about 3 years ago, right?" "So what if I did?" the woman retorted. I quietly approached from behind Mom and was shocked when I saw the woman's face. Agnes? It was Agnes, a classmate from high school. We weren't close, but Agnes would come to me when it suited her, like when she wanted mediation with a boy I was friends with. She was always a fair-weather friend. Shane turned at my voice, looking even more startled. Macy too? Why are you here?" "Why not? You're supposed to be on a company trip today, so why are you here?" I challenged. At my question, Shane was at a loss for words, confused. Agnes, trying to save Shane, replied sharply, "The wife shows up, huh?" Shane, looking uncomfortable, desperately tried to explain to Agnes. Agnes, this is not what it looks like. I know everything already." "Huh?" Shane seemed panicked, realizing his lie about being a widower was exposed. But Agnes already knew it was a lie, seemingly having played along deliberately. Why did she do that and get involved with Shane? Just as I was about to ask Agnes, she glared at me fiercely. Then she shouted, loud enough for the entire restaurant to hear, "I got my revenge on you, you prankster." What do you mean by that? I was momentarily baffled. I hadn't taken anything from Agnes. Seeing my stunned expression, Agnes raised her voice even louder. "Stop pretending you don't know, you liar." Agnes yelled with such force that I stumbled backward and fell. "What are you talking about? Explain it to me, please," I asked, fearfully mustering my voice. This wasn't just about Shane's infidelity anymore. I racked my brain about high school memories with Agnes. Our interactions were mostly about her seeking relationship advice. Could that be the reason? Suddenly, Agnes grabbed my collar. "I won't let you pretend to forget. It was my first love." Agnes, previously angry, now had tears in her eyes. "I trusted you to mediate between me and Toby, but next thing I knew, you were with him." Agnes had a crush on Toby, a classmate back in high school. Toby and I were close because we were in the school marching band. Agnes had asked me to mediate between them. "It's not like Toby and I were dating." "Don't lie. Macy, you said you'd mediate, but then you acted like his girlfriend. I was a fool to trust you." "That's a misunderstanding. I tried to clear it up, but Agnes interrupted. "Macy, you think it's natural for any guy to be drawn to you because you're friendly. And now, you have such a handsome husband. But you're wrong to think all good men are yours." Agnes seemed consumed by hatred and resentment, perhaps stemming from a high school misunderstanding. "Listen, Toby was troubled by your persistent advances. I was just giving him advice." Toby was troubled by Agnes's persistent advances and had asked for my help. But rumors spread that Toby and I were dating, started by girls who were close to Agnes. Bringing this up now might complicate things further. Shane, overhearing our argument and seemingly forgetting his own infidelity scene, commented nonchalantly, "Yeah, Agnes, Macy always acts high and mighty, playing the good girl. I don't have any love left for Macy." What? I was shocked to hear Shane's true feelings about me. Overwhelmed, I collapsed on the spot. Shane and Agnes, seeing this, ostentatiously cuddled up to each other. "Yeah, you're too good for someone plain like Macy. I approached Shane for revenge, but now I've lost interest in such a woman, right?" "Ah, that's right. You've been single all this time, and despite being the same age, You're much younger and prettier than her, Shane said. Really? I'm so happy. I couldn't marry because of this liar, but now I finally feel happy. The two of them are being affectionate right in front of me. The wife. I was completely at a loss for words. At that moment, when I didn't know what to do, Mom stepped in front of me and shouted, "Enough from both of you!" Startled by Mom's sudden yell, Shane and Agnes fell silent. Then Mom pulled an envelope from her bag. Inside were dozens of photos. Mom showed one to Shane, asking him seriously, "Shane, all these are pictures of you and that Agnes woman entering a hotel." The other photos indeed showed Shane embracing Agnes as they entered a hotel. Shane, panicking, grabbed the photos. "When did this—" He tried to crumple the photos. Agnes stood beside him, looking arrogant. Mom glared at Agnes accusingly. "When you joined the sports club 3 years ago, you were overly friendly with Shane, weren't you?" "So what if I was?" "No, just wondering. It seemed like you were targeting Shane from the beginning. Was that the case?" "None of your business." Agnes's brazen attitude infuriated me, but Mom shook her head at me, indicating I should let her handle it. Mom turned back to Shane and Agnes. "Shane, do you understand why I started living with you 3 years ago?" Shane, silent and looking down, seemed to realize something. Then Mom explained why she retired from the sports club 5 years ago and continued as a member. It was to keep an eye on Shane, suspecting his infidelity. Shane had always been popular with female staff and members, even after marriage, and seemed to enjoy the attention. "Shane has been like this since he joined the club. I hoped he changed after getting a family, which is why I opposed your marriage, Macy." I remember telling Mom about marrying Shane. That's why she didn't look happy. Shane had been a doting father, seemingly family-oriented, even if he was popular outside. But things changed 3 years ago, when our son left for university. Shane started spending less time at home. Mom then looked at Agnes. "Agnes, since you joined, Shane's behavior changed. He used to enjoy special treatment, but suddenly he became quiet, which seemed even more suspicious." Mom had been suspicious that Shane was having an affair with Agnes for some time. That's why she moved in with us, to keep an eye on Shane, and even hired a detective. "Mom, these photos are from the detective you hired, aren't they?" "Yes, I made sure you wouldn't notice." As Mom and I were talking, Agnes suddenly burst into laughter. "That's some extreme overprotectiveness for your daughter." "Be quiet," Mom snapped back, causing Agnes to momentarily shut up. Then Mom, facing Shane with a stern expression, asked, "After all my warnings not to make Macy cry, why did you get involved with this woman?" Shane, glancing at Agnes, answered Mom's question. "It was boring with Macy." "Boring?" "Yes. I was never confident about supporting a family. You know the pay in this industry is low, right? So I thought marrying Macy, a public servant, would ease our living conditions." "How is that relevant?" "We just don't get along. Maybe it was a mistake to choose a woman based on conditions alone." Hearing Shane, I felt nauseous. He married me just because I had a stable job? While I was reeling from shock, Agnes twisted the knife. "That's right. Macy has always been just a boring, serious person. No wonder Shane got bored." Agnes seemed oblivious to her position. Furious, I yelled at her. "Agnes, do you even understand your position? How dare you act so high and mighty after stealing someone's husband?" "Yes, we'll demand compensation from you for the affair, Agnes." "Yikes!" Agnes shuddered at the mention of compensation for the affair. It's a just consequence for her actions as the other party in an affair. "Agnes, you may have thought this was revenge against me, but legally, I have the right to claim compensation for the affair. Agnes probably hadn't thought things through. However, she couldn't escape the consequences of her actions. I told them I was considering divorce and would demand compensation from both Shane and Agnes. Shane, seemingly coming to his senses, asked, Wait a minute. What about my life if I divorce Macy?" "Obviously, you'll have to leave." Oh, I'll break up with Agnes. Please overlook this just once. I beg you." Saying this, Shane bowed deeply. Agnes looked at him with a surprised expression, seemingly in panic. "Wait, what are you saying? What about me? I was planning to leave Macy for you. I even quit my job for this." "What? You thought we'd live off my earnings alone? That's impossible." Shane and Agnes, who had been so close moments ago, were now arguing fiercely. It's astonishing how money can sway people's hearts. "Put your quarrel aside for now. If you're saying divorce or pay the compensation, I'll have no choice but to take this to court," I said. At my words, Agnes's face turned pale, and she hurriedly fled the scene. "Hey, wait!" Shane tried to follow but was stopped by the waiter, reminding him that he hadn't paid yet. With no other options, Shane turned to me again, bowing deeply. "I was really wrong. You're the only one for me. I swear I'll never cheat again. Please don't leave me." Shane, on the verge of tears, begged pitifully. The confident, handsome Shane was gone, leaving only despair in me. Why did I ever marry such a man? Refusing to forgive Shane, I filed for divorce. The divorce was finalized, but Shane said he could only pay the compensation in small monthly installments. Shane had a low income and lived a flashy life. Knowing his low income and lavish lifestyle, I wasn't surprised he had no savings. However, Mom, who still went to Shane's sports club, apparently told the staff about his affairs. The staff there are prohibited from having personal relationships with members. Even if a member had recently resigned, the club's policy remained the same. Even former members' details stay in the records for 5 years. Mom seemed to have spread the word about Shane's affairs among the other members. It turned out Shane wasn't only involved with Agnes, but had affairs with several younger female members. It was a classic case of walls have ears. In a job dealing with many customers, bad deeds don't go unnoticed. Shane, caught for his numerous affairs, was fired. He then contacted me, asking to wait for the divorce compensation payments. But showing sympathy would mean my defeat. Mom and I went to Shane's apartment and demanded that he pay the full amount immediately, even if it meant borrowing money. If he couldn't pay, I threatened to take him to court again. Shane retorted as if fighting back. "It's not my fault I lost my job. Macy's mom snitched on me." He blamed Mom for his own infidelity in firing, showing no remorse. But Mom seemed prepared for this reaction. "I knew you'd say that, but the staff already knew about your affairs. They have been discussing firing you for a while now." "What? Staff meetings? I never heard anything about that." "Of course. They discussed it while you weren't there. I only revealed your affair when asked by the staff. It's only because they cared for me, your family, that you weren't fired sooner. Now that we're divorced, there's no need for them to hold back." Shane was stunned, realizing he couldn't blame anyone else. "I'm sorry. I'll pay the divorce compensation right away." Shane paid the full amount after borrowing money. Now, his life would be difficult, but that was no longer my concern. My son, in his final year of university with a job lined up, didn't need his father anymore. When I told my son about the divorce, he too was appalled by Shane. Shane ended up alone, abandoned even by his son. But there was still the issue of Agnes. She had fled, and I needed to claim compensation for the affair. Shane didn't know her contact details. She likely changed her phone number. However, I had another way to contact Agnes. our high school yearbook, which listed everyone's addresses and phone numbers. It's unclear if Agnes still lives at her parents' home. I sent a demand letter to Agnes's home address listed in the yearbook. Soon, Agnes's mother called me. Agnes was living at home, and her mother opened the letter by mistake and was shocked. Agnes wouldn't explain anything, so her mother called me, worried. I explained everything to Agnes's mother, who apologized profusely over the phone. The voice on the other end was so apologetic that I felt embarrassed myself. Days later, Agnes's parents visited my home, paying the compensation for their daughter's affair. They apologized deeply, but Agnes herself was absent. "We're terribly sorry for our daughter's actions. We told her to come, but she refused. We apologize," they said, bowing politely. Agnes called us overprotective, yet she put such a burden on her parents without showing her face. Agnes seems overly sheltered herself. Yet, her parents promised to make her repay the compensation. It's only right for an adult to take responsibility for their actions. Apparently, Agnes had even told her parents about her high school heartbreak, and they assured me that Agnes, not being married, wasn't my fault. "Agnes always held on to the past. Her temperament likely prevented anyone from getting close. We're truly sorry she blamed you, Macy." "No, please don't worry about it." Her parents seemed genuinely kind. I had been troubled by Agnes's accusation, but their words gave me relief. Later, Agnes's parents contacted me again. Agnes had left home. She had refused to pay the compensation they had fronted for her. How childish can she be? When her dad got angry, she yelled, "I hate you, Dad," and left crying, and with nowhere to go. Meanwhile, Shane struggled to find a new job after being fired. His lack of experience outside swimming instruction was a problem. Shane had to work and repay debts. He had to work multiple part-time jobs, including at a grocery store and a family restaurant. Despite being a previous instructor, his new job was a challenge. He was used to being treated specially, but now struggled with customers' attitudes. Shane often sent me messages complaining about minor issues. Therefore, I keep getting updates on Shane's situation whether I like it or not. However, there are times when he doesn't contact me for a while. Occasionally, he'd excitedly mention attractive female customers, showing he hadn't changed. He even got fired for making advances towards a customer. Shane, a good swimmer, seemed to drown in love. It's no surprise he couldn't hold a job in such a state. Desperate, Shane called me, asking to get back together. "Macy, let's try again. I can't live without you." Exhausted by his behavior, I blocked all his contacts. Then Agnes's parents reached out again. Agnes had moved in with a man she met on social media. She couldn't live alone. The man, divorced, had a son who unexpectedly moved in with them. The son had dropped out of high school and didn't work. It seems Agnes started working part-time, but all her earnings were taken by the son. Frustrated, Agnes returned to her parents' home. However, she begged her parents to cover not only the compensation for the affair with me, but also her living expenses. Even her patient parents reached their limit and completely severed ties with Agnes. Agnes, disowned, tearfully went back to the man's place. Meanwhile, after my divorce, I've been living happily with Mom. To avoid Shane's intrusions, we sold our old house and moved to a new place far away, effectively cutting ties with him. Mom, even in this new place, wants to continue her active hobbies. So I've been joining her in visiting various sports facilities nearby. We found one that Mom particularly likes, featuring a spacious training gym, a pool, and even a large bath with a sauna and hot stone therapy. I decided to join the club, invited by Mom. Until now, my life was hectic with work and household chores. But from now on, I plan to fully enjoy my hobbies and my own time.
It may be common for families to disagree or to have financial difficulties. However, there are families who manage to keep their families together and go about their daily lives. I believe it is not necessary to think which is happier. My name is Lily. Since I was a child, I've been referred to as a strange child. I'm not sure what's odd about myself. I only think I am because people say I am odd. It's fine to be told that I'm strange, but the problem is that my parents avoid me because of it. My childhood was lonely. I'm so in tune to people's minds that I can read what they're thinking. I'm not sure how I'm able to do it. It's not that I couldn't see or feel everything, but I couldn't understand why I could do what I did. It felt so natural to me, just like how for ordinary people they move their hands or breathe. There was a time when I felt an evil emotion or a presence from a coworker who my father had brought home with him. I felt like we had to be careful with that person. I warned my mother, but she ignored me. Later, the coworker persuaded my father to sign a contract as a debt guarantor. My mother did not believe my story. But, as my father was leaving the table with the coworker, I said, "Something tells me that the phrase joint and several is hazardous. I'm not sure what solidarity entails, but be cautious." As a result, my father reluctantly declined to sign as a co-signer. As a result, when his colleague declared bankruptcy and was unable to repay his debts, the entire burden did not fall on my father. Another time, when I was out shopping with my mother, I felt a wave of unease approaching from behind me. When I turned around, I noticed a man wearing sunglasses and a hat, emitting that wave of unease. "Mom, let's just veer off that way and keep going," I said. With that, I took my mother's hand in mine and we walked down a side road. She was perplexed, wondering what was wrong, but as we moved to the side street, we heard a shout of, "I've been robbed!" from the main street. The man who had been emitting those dark vibrations had snatched a woman's bag right in front of us and fled. The woman who had been robbed by the man collapsed and was injured. My mother would have been that man's target if we had stayed on the sidewalk. My parents began to avoid me as a strange and peculiar child because this happened so frequently. I was so very lonely. What was normal to me was not normal to others. I was the strange and eerie child, so I kept my thoughts to myself. Even if I was feeling like something was wrong, I stopped expressing it, as if it were something only crazy people felt. I realized that if I didn't say anything, I was just like any other kid, and no one would think I was strange. Sophie, my younger sister, is 3 years younger than me. She is a typical child, unlike me. Unlike me, who is getting darker and darker as the years pass, my younger sister is becoming more adorable and cute. My younger sister was raised with the love from my parents, unlike me. My parents clearly preferred my younger sister to me. Sophie is a lovely young lady, but Lily is dark and shadowy. Lily is an odd child, despite the fact that she no longer says anything strange. I'm not going to say I've stopped saying strange things or feeling things only I can feel. It was something I made up to get by. I was sick of the pain this power was causing me, and I was doing everything I could to keep it under control. I grew up without my parents' love. It was either because my attempts to pretend I was normal gave the impression that I was unusual, or because once this unusual image was attached to me, it could not be erased. My younger sister, on the other hand, was raised with my parents' love. My spoiled sister sensed my parents' coldness and slight distance from me and began to look down on me. She used to say, "I don't like being around my sister because it transfers the darkness to me. I'm very attractive, but my sister has a negative impact on my image." She started saying things to put me down whenever she got the chance. My parents only tolerated her and made no attempt to correct her. She was approached by a scouter for an entertainment production company in town. She was asked to join their agency when I was in my second year of junior high, and she was in her 5th year of elementary school. She stated, "It's obvious because I'm attractive." They said I could be on television. My younger sister was already thinking about a career, which satisfied our parents. "You should take it slow and think about it. I have a bad feeling about this." I didn't want my sister to be in trouble, so I opened up about my feelings, which I had kept hidden for so long. My sister, who was unaware of my unusual ability, said, "Are you chastising me because you're not attractive and can't communicate with others like me? Don't be strange, and don't stand in my way." Her face turned red, and she reached for me. My parents, who knew about my ability, had either forgotten about it or were overjoyed to see their little daughter in the spotlight, and they stood by her side, accusing me. I then reaffirmed my intention to remain silent. I told myself that saying anything unnecessary would result in nothing good. An educational internship student was scheduled to visit my middle school one day. He was a male college student, a junior high graduate who aspired to be a physical education teacher. The trainee spoke of his educational dreams and gave a powerful speech to the teachers and students. He became very popular with the teachers and students, particularly the female students. As the intern responded briskly to the loud voices of the female students, I felt a black wave of dread wash over me. I had made it a rule to keep myself hidden and not reveal my unusual abilities. But when I saw that my classmates were in danger, I decided to break my own rule. I approached a teacher who appeared to understand what I was saying. "I know this is unexpected, but please believe me and help me." The teacher was perplexed by my abrupt statement, but he did as I requested and staked out a specific location after school. I kept the details from the teacher. I didn't tell him the details because there was no way he'd believe me even if I did. But the teacher listened to me without any explanation. He might have been more than a simpleton. The next day, the entire school was in a frenzy. The nuisance prevention ordinance had been violated by the student trainee. The teacher had staked out the area near the women's restroom, and the trainee appeared, entering the women's restroom. He set up a video camera within 15 minutes of starting the stakeout. The teacher was successful in suppressing the scene of the incident. As a result, the female students were not victims of voyeurism and were not humiliated. On the other hand, my younger sister was scouted by an entertainment agency and enthusiastically joined the agency, yet there were no lessons or even an audition. She was only required to pay costly affiliation and lesson fees. The office was then abruptly closed one day. Simply put, my sister was taken advantage of. She screamed and cried, turning her rage on me. She became enraged and yelled at me, It's all because of you. You ruined my future. It's entirely your fault." It was an absurd statement, but my sister seemed to believe it wholeheartedly. She had to think that way to survive, but it was a disaster and an annoyance to me. My parents did not say such ridiculous things, but they did notice that she was pulling away from me and leaning towards our younger sister. As a strange child, I was to experience loneliness once again. I was pleased that I had been able to assist everyone at school, but I was concerned that my actions would push me over the edge. The following day, the teacher who had listened to my story summoned me to the staff room. I opened the door to the staff room, fearful of being labeled as strange once more. "You knew something like that was going to happen about a week ago, didn't you?" The teacher asked me in hushed tones, with no warning. I knew it was pointless to try to fool him, so I told him about my mysterious power. After all, I know there aren't many people like that out there. It was the first time I'd heard of anyone understanding what I was going through. The teacher explained that he knew someone with my level of power, which is why he understood me. He stated, "That person is actually my aunt, and I've known about her for a long time. I understand you have a lot on your mind. I'm sure you'll feel a lot better if you get advice from someone in your situation." The teacher brought the person to me after saying this. The person looked me in the eyes and said, "It's natural to be concerned, but you don't have to suffer." Her kind but deep eyes, which seemed to see everything, drew me in. Sarah was the person's name, and she told me that she had the same power as I did since childhood, and that she had spent her entire life troubled and hiding herself. The story of the older person who had gone through similar experiences to mine was releasing me from my fears and doubts. My interaction with Sarah began on that day. I addressed her as my mentor, but she laughed and replied, "Will you not call me that?" Sarah, or rather my mentor, changed my life. If I had lived a modest, shadowy existence, concealing who I was, but my consciousness was transformed. I was gradually able to live my daily life as a normal girl. However, since the incident at the entertainment agency, I have been unable to get close to my sister. In fact, we appear to be growing apart rather than together. It was normal for her not to talk to me, and the only time she did was to complain about something she didn't deserve or to make fun of me. I have no idea what triggers the switch. My psychic abilities also failed to predict my sister's emotional shifts. She used to say, "What's the big deal about you getting accepted to college? Aren't you just a mental flower garden?" My sister had failed the high school entrance exam at her first choice school, which she had been told she would definitely pass. She was able to enroll at a stopgap in a high school that she considered her second choice. As a result, my sister was furious that I had been accepted to her top choice university. I wasn't happy about it, and I wasn't bragging about it to my sister. She was simply making assumptions and disrespecting me. My parents only consoled and coddled my sister, who was going through a difficult time, and told me to go away and not to bother her. My sister didn't seem to like me either, despite the fact that I had grown up and become a better person since meeting my teacher. I guess she doesn't like me unless I'm a dark and gloomy inferior woman to her. My sister, on the other hand, is extremely intelligent. It's a wonder she didn't pass the high school entrance exam. She was very frustrated, and she channeled that frustration into her studies at the high school she enrolled in. As a result, she was the top student for 3 years and was accepted with a single shot into a difficult national university. She stated, "Heh heh, I got into the most difficult university. Your university is nowhere near mine." I responded to my sister's satisfied remark with a light-hearted, "Yeah, I guess so." I knew that getting too involved with her would be disastrous. My sister, on the other hand, thought my light response was a slight on her own brilliance and lashed out as hard as she could. My parents were scared of my sister, who would lose her temper until she calmed down, and whenever she got into this situation, all they could do was watch and worry. My parents blamed me for this and concluded by calling me a liar-troubled daughter. I wanted to argue with them about which of us was actually the troubled daughter, but I had to swallow those words because I had to go home and didn't want to complicate things. Aside from my sister, I was nearing the end of my college career and needed to make a decision about my life. I'm not as dark and withdrawn as I used to be, but I'm still not sociable, and I doubt my ability to form successful interpersonal relationships. My ability is to sense people's negative emotions. I can understand positive feelings, but people are more prone to negative feelings, and negative thoughts hurt me. I had been tossed around by swirling negative emotions in school, and I was on the verge of distrusting people. I was concerned if I could perform well in a corporate setting. I discussed this with my mentor. I was certain she had faced similar challenges, and I wanted to know how she overcame them. She stated, "I experienced the same difficulties that you are facing now. Maybe you should do something like me." She told me that she had spent a long time working as a fortune teller or counselor, assisting people with their problems. I have the ability to fully demonstrate my power and contribute to the world and others. As I can work freelance, I don't have to be part of an organization, and I don't have to deal with people's emotions or relationships, both of which I am afraid of. It's the ideal position for people like us. I decided to pursue the same job at the encouragement of my mentor. She showed me how to do the job and to find customers. Thanks to the internet, I can now work from home. When I told my parents and younger sister that, instead of getting a job after graduation, I would work from home, they said, "What exactly is it? What kind of job is it? What type of work is it? Then at the very least, you should do our housework. What about living costs?" That was my expected reaction from a parent, but I was disappointed that they had not been more supportive of me. While I assumed it was normal for them to expect housework and money, I was still sad. Because of this, I could see my sister disrespecting me even more in the future, which made me even more sad. So my life as a work-from-home employee began. There were no job offers at first, and it was a trial and error process, but with the assistance of my mentor, I gradually obtained a job. I couldn't do what my father asked me to, which was put money into the house, for about a year, so I devoted my energy to housework. My father was not pleased, but my mother was relieved that things were getting easier, and she kept him in check. When I put money into the house for the first time after about a year, my father made fun of me, saying, You finally got some money, didn't you? Even with the money, however, the number of household chores he shared with me did not increase, and my life remained the same. My sister graduated from university 2 years later and decided to work for a foreign affiliated company. Because it was a foreign company, the pay was good, and he told me, unlike my sister, I am not a member of the elite. My sister, who has found work outside of home, has made fun of the fact that I work from home. She stated, I have no idea what you're doing working from home. Isn't that just for kicks? You're a parasite in your own home. My pay will increase, and I'm sure I'll be making 10 times more than my sister. Someone like you could never make that much money. My sister, who was promoted to chief after a 1.5 years with the company, also told me about it and made fun of me. My sister brags about her good salary, but she doesn't contribute anything to the household and doesn't help with any of the household chores. She delegated laundry, cleaning, meal preparation, and everything else to my mother and me. The work was between my mother and myself, but my mother delegated most of the work to me, so in effect, I was the one doing all the work. I said, Sophie, you need to take better care of yourself. Instead of spending it all on yourself, you should put some money into the house. I informed her. Then she said, You're a waste of space, sister. You should do all of our housework. I'm putting the money aside for my future. She never pays attention to me. For some unexplainable reason, my parents tactfully agree with her, claiming that it can't be helped because she's my sister. I wanted to stay in my current job because it was comfortable and familiar, but I was beginning to wonder what I should do with myself. My sister then made a shocking announcement. I'm getting married! Because there was no warning, my parents and I were taken aback and froze. He is a wealthy man who earns more than $10 million per year. Oh, I'm sorry I became happy first, sister. But isn't marriage just a pipe dream for a person like you? My sister then said she'd bring her boyfriend the following Sunday. Sunday arrived, and while we were in a state of panic due to the rapid succession of events, the man she brought with her was a young man dressed in a suit and tie who appeared to be capable. My name is John, and it's a pleasure to meet you. I've come to propose to Sophie. He greeted her with dignity and politeness. I told you he was wonderful, and he is, isn't he? I'll be happy with him. John, what is your job? My father, despite being overcome by her boyfriend's aura, asked a question anyway. I am currently undergoing training at a company owned by a friend of my father's. When I was perplexed by the term, my sister explained, his father is the company's president. He is training outside of the company to be his successor in the future, she explained cheerfully. My sister seemed overjoyed at the prospect of marrying the company's future president. After that, we talked about various topics before Sophie's boyfriend bravely left. Despite a few gaps in the subsequent conversation, my parents seemed pleased with the impressive man. John, who appeared to be young and fresh, cast an inexpressible shadow of blackness on me. I'm not sure how to explain it because I'm the one who can feel it. I couldn't stay silent any longer, fearing that marrying a man with this type of darkness would make my sister unhappy. Listen, Sophie, you've only been dating him for less than 3 months, so get to know him a little better before you decide to marry him. My senses were going off, so I couldn't explain and tried to reassure my sister by saying something vague. What exactly are you on about, sister? He is a man of great distinction and a potential president. He is a distinguished individual and the company's future president. You're just upset because you compare your situation to my happiness. You're a pitiful person, aren't you? My parents also yelled at me to get out of their way because such a wealthy man would soon be their son. Because you're a nobody, you should at least stop interfering with your sister's happiness. My parents' plan was obvious. Let their daughter marry a wealthy man and live in peace in their old age. My mind was racing with rage because I couldn't tell my sister about the black shadow that was attacking her. In the meantime, they got engaged and a meeting between the two families took place. My sister's fiancé's parents were clad in the same fresh breeze as John, but the same black clouds seemed to be hiding behind them again. However, the wedding day arrived before I could warn my sister and parents, who were too excited. You know, the president of our company is attending today's reception. Do you know how talented and promising I am? It's a great honor, but I know that you, my little stay-at-home sister, can't even imagine how great it is. Before leaving the house, my sister gleefully told me something I hadn't even asked her. As usual, she adds a few words of disrespect to me. They pledged their eternal love to each other at the hotel's wedding hall and then entered the reception hall. My sister looked happy with a big smile on her face, and I looked at her with concern as to how long that happiness would last. The president of the company, my sister said, would give the speech as guest of honor. It was a congratulatory speech, so naturally, it was a speech that lifted up my sister, and she was pleased with it. After all the congratulatory speeches were over, drinks and food were brought to each table. The food looked delicious, but I gradually began to feel uncomfortable. I was beginning to feel uncomfortable because nothing had been brought to my table. At first, I thought it was just a delay, but other tables had already received drinks and hors d'oeuvres one after another. It was obviously strange. I was the only one who had not received anything. The people at the same table also noticed the strangeness and began to get uncomfortable. At that time, my sister came up to me and said with a laugh in my ear, "Free food is not prepared for people like you. I mean, this food is too good for you. You should just go home and eat potato chips. Just leave our wedding gift and go home." My eyebrows shot up at the outrageous line said loudly in my ear. The groom was also grinning and nodding widely in the groom's seat. Even my parents pretended to be surprised at first, but when they said something like, well, Sophie is right," I was surprised at first, but that surprise was followed by a surge of anger. I never thought you could be this insane. Father and mother, you are too much. How could you accept such rudeness? My parents gave me a bitter look, but did not admonish my sister. I understand. I'm going home. But know this, you'll regret it. What's with that threat? I wonder if it's the howl of a loser. The hall was abuzz with excitement at this unbelievable turn of events, when a man stood up with a start. "I'm the groom's brother. My name is David. My brother and parents are scum, but the bride is even more so. I can't take it." The man who introduced himself as David continued, "Father, your company went bankrupt half a year ago, and you're still falsely claiming to be the president of it. The fact that you are still pretending to be the president of this company must mean that you are trying to take advantage of your daughter-in-law and her family. John, you can't be president anymore either, but you're still faking it and trying to sleaze off your wife, aren't you? Because you are unemployed now. The buzz in the hall heated up at the man's comment, but it was the younger sister who became even more heated. What do you mean? You cheated me? What do you mean? You're unemployed? She turned bright red and asked a series of questions. Her face gradually turned from red to blue, and her eyes began to tear up. My parents were also out of the loop, and both of them were screaming. The screams of my family echoed through the hall. Both the groom and the groom's parents were stunned and silent. In fact, before the show began, I had received David's confession and apology. I had asked him not to hesitate to speak his mind if something happened during the reception. Then, as my sister was blaming David with a face full of anger and resentment, another man stood up with a look of that said he could not take it anymore. It was the president of my sister's company. He said, "Enough of this. It's not looking good. You have no right to blame the groom. What makes you think you have the right to criticize the groom's brother for his mistreatment of his brother?" The boss's voice was filled with anger, and she looked frightened. "I didn't attend your ceremony for your sake," he said. "If you weren't Lily's sister, to whom I owe so much, I wouldn't be here." My sister's eyes went wide when the president suddenly mentioned my name. "Oh, Lily? Lily has saved numerous companies from crisis. She is like a goddess among us business owners." Under my mentor's guidance, I started out as a fortune teller and life consultant, and then became an advisor for corporate revitalization. Although I had no managerial knowledge, I have used my powers to show the company the way it should go. I was right on target, and one after another, the companies that turned to me revitalized their corporate strength, and their business experienced amazing recoveries. For this reason, I have received the titles of teacher and goddess. My sister's company was also consulted 6 months ago, and with my advice, it was revitalized as a stronger company. The president of the company felt in debt to me and attended today's wedding. She said, "Oh no, I didn't know anything about that. Aren't you a stay-at-home nobody?" Thanks to Lily, my business is going well. Thanks to you, I have a good job and now earn more than you do. I put enough money into the house, but my parents don't care about me. What do you think all that money was for? Oh, that money wasn't Sophie's. The parents seemed to have misunderstood. There was no way she could have brought money into the house. The wedding party broke up in a heap of confusion. Naturally, the wedding gift was fully refunded to everyone. How are we going to pay for this ceremony now that we don't have all the money from the gifts? Besides, I had relied on John's income and signed a contract for a condominium in my name. I can't pay the rent by myself if I'm unemployed. To the sobbing sister, John said, "You signed the contract on your own, didn't you?" "I don't know anything about it." "Divorce! Divorce! Divorce, you crook!" The wedding turned out to be a mess. This was also the result of his malice towards others for no reason at all. He might have claimed that he had a reason to be malicious, but there was no way that would have passed muster. Later, the young sister divorced John and demanded alimony. There was no way that John, who was unemployed, and his parents could afford to pay a large amount of alimony. And although they were barely able to pay for the wedding hall, it was nowhere near enough to cover the cost of the condo they had contracted for. The house that was to become their love nest was canceled without ever being lived in. However, the loan balance was not erased, and the loan was a heavy burden on the younger sister. In addition, the outrageous behavior at the wedding spread quickly among the company officials who were present, and the sister lost credibility. The president of the company gave up on her and sent her to a lower position. She had no place at the company and lost her pride as an elite employee. She wanted to quit the company and run away, but in order to repay the loan, she had to continue working there. She continued working in a basement reference room, doing trivial work and may or may not be of any importance. John and his parents failed in their attempt to become parasites on my younger sister. They too are struggling to make ends meet by working day jobs. Naturally, the older brother David had separated himself from his parents and younger brother. My parents had easily given up on my sister, who had hit rock bottom, and they came to me. But I said, I don't want to be pushed around by you guys anymore. I'm going to cut you off. Goodbye. With that declaration, I left home, signed a lease on a new apartment, and began a new life. I took in my sister, who had fallen on hard times, and began to have trouble making ends meet. My sister's salary had been drastically reduced, and she could not afford to put any money into our parents' house. Naturally, I also stopped the money I had been putting in my parents' house. My parents, who could not lower their standards of living, quickly became exhausted and were complaining every day. My business is going well, and I am helping many companies and people in a positive way. And to tell the truth, I started dating David after the wedding incident, and he recently asked me to go out with him. If things continue as they are, marriage is on the horizon. I can't help but look forward to building up happiness with David, who has a clear heart with no dark shadows.
Ivana, what are you doing here? I had just returned from shopping when I saw a figure standing frozen at the front door. I was so taken aback that I dropped my shopping bags. What about your honeymoon? I came back alone. Upon hearing this, Ivana started to cry. I am Emily, a 58-year-old housewife. My husband is Oswald, who is 60 years old. And this is about my daughter Ivana, who was supposed to be on her honeymoon, but was inexplicably standing at our front door with her suitcase. Hold on, I am totally lost here. For now, I let Ivana inside the house to hear the details. I placed Ivana's pink suitcase by the entrance and ushered her, still sobbing, into the living room. I then set a glass of iced tea on the dining table. Ivana began to sip it cautiously. I slowly began to ask questions, trying to piece the situation together. So, you came back from Hawaii all alone? Yes. She was supposed to be in Hawaii for her honeymoon, just 2 days ago. Why exactly? I am familiar with her husband Lloyd. He's a courteous man, and as far as I know, he has a significant role in a major company. He seemed very promising, like someone who could provide a stable life. That's why we celebrated their marriage. As Ivana began to speak, I learned a shocking truth. There was another woman there. Excuse me? On their honeymoon? A woman? My voice cracked in disbelief. So we ended up spending time together, all 3 of us. Wait, what? A honeymoon with 3 people? And a woman you didn't even know? Just hearing that made my blood boil. I pulled out my mobile phone, quickly found Lloyd's contact, and hit the call button. Wait, Mom. Ivana tries to stop me with a weak voice, but I totally ignore her. How dare he do this to my Ivana? Unforgivable. My hand holding the phone trembles. After about 3 rings, Lloyd picks up. Hold on, what's the meaning of this? You're hanging out with another woman? I started ranting without even waiting for Lloyd's response. Then, in an extremely bored tone, she's my sister, my actual sister. What are you misunderstanding? What? His actual sister? I don't know where to direct my gaze. Ivana has her head down too. Sister? Your real sister? Yes. There is nothing shady going on. She's the sister who lives in Hawaii and couldn't make it to the wedding because her kid had an ear infection. Oh. So, I have a question too. I can't reach Ivana, since you seem to know what's going on here. Is she back with you? While saying this, Lloyd lets out a sigh on the other end of the phone. Women really go off the handle so easily, making a fuss and then fly all the way back to Boston on a whim. Is it the female hormones that make you act so irrationally? Even if I got it a bit wrong, there is no need for that kind of language. That comment was totally insensitive toward women. I am getting pretty steamed. The one who acted on emotion and left is your Ivana. I will be staying in Hawaii as planned for a week. When I get back, I expect a full apology. Please let Ivana know that's the plan. With that, Lloyd hung up abruptly. I really can't wrap my head around the situation. Yeah, me neither, but Mom, you kind of jumped the gun with that phone call before we could get the full story. According to Ivana's explanation, as soon as they arrived in Hawaii, it seems Lloyd's real sister was waiting for them at the hotel. Lloyd told me, so my sister will put you through some special training to see if you're worthy of being my partner. I've never heard of a honeymoon where the groom's sister tags along to give lessons in housekeeping. What? We never talked about this. I wanted to visit the beautiful beaches and Mauna Kea mountain. When Ivana stammered this out, that's your problem, isn't it? Ivana felt emotionally shut out. But you said you wanted to go too. Once my sister's special training is over, we can go wherever we like. Of course, all 3 of us. The reason we chose Hawaii, where my sister lives, is precisely for this. Then a woman named Sanaya, the sister, said, Enough talk. From today, I will be giving you an intense homemaking course. I've been doing this for years. As both a wife and a mom, I want to go all out to help my brother's marriage. Off to my house we go. So it seems this mysterious training started unfolding. So, what happened once you got to his sister's house? I found myself parched. I poured more iced tea into my empty glass to encourage the storytelling. Even though Lloyd is usually serious, it was clear from that phone call that he looked down on women, and Ivana as well. Turning a honeymoon into a housekeeping training camp? Hearing this almost made me want to throw my iced tea in anger. Go on. Ivana continues the story haltingly. The house they were driven to, Sanaya's home, was cluttered with children's toys. First lesson in housekeeping cleaning. Apparently, she was told to clean the scattered toys. Next is the shower room, and also the toilet. While Ivana was doing the work, Sanaya, claiming to be supervising her housekeeping skills, was spending time with Lloyd in the living room. Isn't this basically using your partner for menial tasks under the guise of visiting home? Doesn't it feel like harassment? When I pressed for more details, that's not all. Fresh tears streamed down from Ivana's eyes. They told me to make dinner for Sanaya's family of 4 plus the 2 of us, just using what was in the fridge. I've never cooked for 6 people before. I thought I would learn how to cook as we went along in our marriage. I couldn't even come up with a menu. Ivana's ordeal continued. So I found some eggplant in the fridge and tried to look up recipes on a cooking community website on my phone. Then Sanaya said, "You should be able to cook by eye. Using your phone is unacceptable." She took my phone away and said, "This is a failure. I'm going to need to give you some intensive training. We're changing all our vacation plans to stay at our house." The entire vacation? Even one day would be ridiculous, but the whole vacation. So that was it. Apparently, she took back her phone and returned home, sobbing. What even is this? Ivana was really looking forward to their honeymoon. The hotel had a sparkling pool and a view of the beautiful ocean. They must have been excited to try poke balls and Hawaiian plate lunches. But Lloyd and Sanaya trampled over those dreams so easily. Then, Ivana, tears streaming down her face, brought up a suggestion. Interesting. Sounds like a plan. I decided to support Ivana with all my might. As soon as the honeymoon was over, Ivana received a call from Lloyd. "We're coming over tomorrow to discuss how we're going to live from now on." When Ivana asked, "What do you mean by how we're going to live?" "You failed as Lloyd's partner, so we need to discuss what's next. Seth said you're a total failure in the kitchen. We need to talk specifics. Seth is coming with me. So listen carefully and think about where you went wrong." What? Reflect on my actions? I was about to explode with anger at that arrogant and unreasonable demand. But them coming over actually works in my favor. I decided to handle this calmly. Finally, the day of the confrontation arrived, and Sanaya and Lloyd showed up. "Well, Ivana, done any reflecting?" Lloyd starts off with arrogance right away. The serious demeanor he had during our first meeting seemed to have flown away. "For now, please, come in." I led the 2 of them into the living room. "Now, let's start the Ivana's partner test." I called out loudly for my husband, who was waiting in the other room. "All right." My husband walks in holding a yoga mat, a confident smile on his face. "Gotta keep in shape to protect the family. First, we're going to work on our core and back muscles." My husband has recently become concerned with aging and started going to the gym. With thrice weekly workouts guided by a personal trainer, he's got a solid chest, even at 60. "Alright, we're doing push-ups on this mat. It's a competition. Lower yourself down for 3 seconds, count slowly, and then push back up. That's 1 rep. If you don't stay down for 3 seconds, you won't engage your core muscles." Lloyd, who appears to have never worked out a day in his life, is utterly shocked. If you're saying Ivana needs a Lloyd's partner test, then I'm going to test if you're fit to be Ivana's partner. Keeping in shape is important for family support and child rearing too. Now, place your hands slightly wider than shoulder width apart and get into a push-up position. Come on, hurry up. It felt like boot camp, as if a merciless drill sergeant was waiting to put Lloyd through the ringer. Both my husband and Lloyd assumed the push-up position. And 1. At that moment, Lloyd collapses onto the floor and can't get back up. He's stuck to the floor like a squashed frog. "Ha ha ha, you can't do it. I can do 50, you know? My husband is breezily doing push-ups beside him. His glasses are askew, his tie is crooked. Lloyd remains collapsed. Alright, you're next. I turned to Sanaya, who was standing there, dumbfounded. What? Me too? Now it's Sanaya's turn to be surprised. You seem to be fond of my Ivana. I will be the judge of whether you have the ability as a mom and a wife, and whether you're fit to guide my Ivana. Yes, this was the retaliation plan that Ivana had suggested to me. Sanaya's home had mold growing in the shower, and her toys were just pushed to the side. She wasn't exactly in a position to teach me how to clean. Based on what Ivana told me, I had formulated a plan. Then, I forcefully pulled Sanaya into the living room. I've lifted dirty just for you. This is your test. Now, start cleaning. Sanaya tried to deflect, saying, I came here for discussion from Hawaii. Huh? Didn't you make Ivana do chores under the guise of guidance and steal her leisure time? Well, I'm just returning the favor. Clean up quickly and call me when you're done. The next test awaits. I go back to the living room and make some good tea. I hand a cup to Ivana, who's quietly watching the plan unfold, and we both sit on the sofa. Meanwhile, Lloyd is struggling with his workout and getting berated by my husband. His neatly styled hair is now a mess. After a while, Sanaya returns to the living room. I've finished cleaning. Oh, that was quick, she says, peeking into the bathroom. It had taken her nearly an hour, so she must have done a decent job. At first glance, it looks clean, but there are clear traces of water streaks on the walls. If you don't wipe the water off shiny surfaces immediately, they'll get cloudy. Don't you even know that? Especially the mirror. It will get those white water stains. And you dare call yourself Ivana's mentor? I gave it to her, holding nothing back. Sanaya tried to make an excuse, saying, there is no mirror in my home shower room. Well, I've heard from Ivana, who cleaned your house, that there indeed was a mirror. I quickly shot back. And she said there was also a lot of black mold. Clearly, you've been neglecting it. Sanaya was left without a comeback, but I couldn't let her off the hook that easily. Alright, next up is sewing. Get to the sewing machine. What? Just as she thought she could relax after cleaning, another task was upon her. A sewing machine is a must, isn't it? I've heard your child is still small, but it's a given. I grinned as I picked up some leftover quilted fabric from when I made Ivana's lunch bag ages ago. Sanaya and I headed to the craft room upstairs. Peeking into the living room, I saw Lloyd was still getting a serious workout. He might even pull a muscle or something. You'll make a simple bag with this fabric? I've already done the cutting for you. Aren't I kind? A sewing machine, you say? You're not going to tell me you've never used one, are you? You can do all sorts of housework, right? I took Sanaya's hand and made her sit in front of the sewing machine. I, don't know how to thread it. Sanaya looked down, clearly uncomfortable. Excuse me? So, about threading the machine. What? What? I can't thread it. I looked down at Sanaya, who was frozen in front of the sewing machine, and chuckled in disbelief. You claim to be a mentor, but you don't even know this. Ivana, come here. I called to Ivana downstairs. Coming! Ivana arrives. This lady here, she doesn't know the first thing about sewing. As I smirked, oh dear, Sanaya, like this. Ivana threaded the machine for her. Sanaya's face turned beet red, as if she couldn't bear the humiliation. Now, go ahead. Surrounded by the two of us, Sanaya started the sewing machine. Clatter, clatter, clatter. The stitching was all over the place. Pfft! I couldn't help but burst out laughing at her poor attempt. Ivana was also holding back a laugh, looking down. Some stitches were too deep, and others weren't aligned at all. Ivana, show her how it's done, will you? Sure, but usually you should do a securing stitch at the edge first. Well, it can't be helped, can it? She started sewing without any know-how. Our so-called leader here knows nothing. Ivana skillfully operated the sewing machine, stitching it straight. Having loved sewing from a young age and being in the sewing club through middle and high school, this was a piece of cake for Ivana. Watching that, Sanaya grumbled, "You can just pay someone at a craft store to sew a bag for you." Really? Then what's the difference between outsourcing your sewing to a craft store and replacing your lack of cooking skills with supermarket pre-made meals? There are things you can do that Ivana can't, and vice versa. Stop making excuses and picking and choosing to suit your convenience. I said just that and headed down to the living room. On the first floor, Lloyd was still sprawled on the floor. It looked like he couldn't even get up anymore. Beside me, my husband was striking some sort of muscle pause. "All right, let's have a talk. All of us." Still trembling with humiliation, Sanaya managed to take a seat on the sofa, along with Lloyd, who had somehow managed to get up. Ivana, my husband, and I sat across from them. "First, take a look at this." I laid out the sewing pieces from both Sanaya and Ivana on the table for everyone to see and compare. It's downright hilarious that someone who can only produce something this shoddy would act like they're in charge. Lloyd stared at his sister's wobbly stitching, completely stunned. That said it all. Sanaya was at loss for words, her hands trembling. "This one's a mess too. Unbelievable that they only had Ivana do the special training." This time, it was Dad who laid into Lloyd. "You've been going on about women, but we really have to question how you're doing as a man yourself," I added, driving the point home. Okay, this is probably a good place to stop. That's right, I remembered something Ivana and I had agreed upon that day. "Ivana, go ahead and bring it out." Ivana presented some documents. "It's not a quick divorce or anything, but I just can't go on with you anymore. I'm glad I realized it sooner rather than later." Ivana stated it firmly. "What?" Their voices of surprise came out in unison. Both widened their eyes, flustered and mouths moving, but no words coming out. "Hold on, I was thinking of forgiving you as long as you showed some remorse." Finally, Lloyd spoke up. "Sure, I can't cook, but that's not something I need to be sorry about. Devoting all our honeymoon to training and bringing in Sanaya, it's all just too absurd. I can't be with you anymore." Ivana started signing the papers with a pen. "Wait, so it's my fault that you're getting a divorce? All I did was point out your flaws." Now it was Sanaya's turn to panic. Ivana shook her head. "I never said I can't cook. I was planning on learning eventually. Besides," she paused for a moment, "just like I have things I can and cannot do, so does Sanaya. Judging that slowly based on your own convenience and standards is wrong," she said, setting the record straight. I went in for the kill too. "You can't even sew or clean, acting all high and mighty. Plus, you ruined the honeymoon and treated Ivana like a servant. I am too embarrassed to be related to you. Just sign the divorce papers and get out." And so, Ivana came back to our home. Sanaya got divorced because she was terrible at housekeeping. How dare she continuously harass Ivana, claiming to be some sort of mom or Lloyd's partner without even considering her own flaws. This is what we call personal responsibility. Meanwhile, Lloyd kept making mistakes at work due to his inconsiderate personality. He even said something insensitive to a female coworker like, "These documents are a mess. Are you not in the mood to work just because you're feeling unwell?" He faced severe disciplinary action and was suspended from work. "Would you come back? If you reflect on this, I believe we can start over. And I feel like I could even get my position back at work." It seems like Ivana kept getting messages from Lloyd pressuring her to get back together, despite showing no signs of remorse. "That's not gonna happen. I'm getting married." With that, she promptly cut off communication. Yes, Ivana is set to remarry in 6 months. Her new partner is also a businessman, similar to before, but much more easygoing. He's into ab rolling and has a fit physique. As long as I can eat, I'm good. When they dine together, they get excited talking about things like protein for bodybuilding. Ivana, who's now seriously learning to cook, joins her in the kitchen. I mean, I could at least make scrambled eggs. While making sandwiches for work, Ivana recalls those days. "It's okay, don't worry about it. You'll get the hang of it as you go along." With that, I seasoned the dish just by eyeballing it.
My name is Kelly, and I am 62 years old. I live alone in an apartment in Irvine. My mother divorced shortly after I was born, so I grew up in a single mother family. Fortunately, after the divorce, my father provided me with adequate support and cared for me until I entered college. Following that, I joined a reasonably well-known company, and we had an arranged marriage thanks to an introduction from my boss. My son was born soon after, and we were enjoying our days together. But my husband died suddenly because of illness shortly after my son began working. My son's name is Mike. He was an honest child who cared for me as a child, but his personality began to change when he entered college. His selfishness worsened after my husband died, and he would say things like, "I'm on my own now, so leave me alone." I'd say he's become more dependable, but I'm wondering if it's because I'm getting older that I'm feeling a little lonely. My son is marrying the daughter of one of his client's presidents, whom he met through a business acquaintance. Her family seems to be a rich family, and they look down on my son, who comes from a single mother family, at first. But her father said, "Talking about family background nowadays is an anachronism. That is fine if you both agree." When I first visited her parents' home for the wedding ceremony, I was astounded by its size and magnificence. I then gave my son the house I was living in and moved into a new apartment that I purchased with my husband's inheritance. It is in Irvine, but I like the peace and quiet of the suburbs. My son's wife had the temperament of a wealthy daughter from an old rich family. She seemed to look down on me, a divorced woman living in a small urban apartment. She seemed to think I was a poor person on a pension. "I don't mean to be rude to you, but may I ask you a question?" "Yes, what is it?" "I'm afraid you have financial problems." "Thank you for your concern, but I've been able to make a decent living." "My family is well known, and my father is the president of a well-known furniture manufacturer. He's the CEO. Do you get what I'm saying?" She boasted about her family as if it was normal to do so. "So, do you believe you'll be able to obtain financial assistance?" "What do you mean?" "Let me tell you frankly, I don't want our money going toward your living expenses." She believes I am a poor woman who will be a burden on her family. "Oh, I never thought about it." "Perhaps not now, but you will, won't you?" I was wondering what kind of education she got. "Oh, well, thank you very much for your generosity, but you don't have to worry about that. Keep that in mind." She then walked away from me. Her reaction was unusual, and I could tell how bad her personality is. Then, sometime later, my son and his wife visited me. I made a lot of homemade dishes to keep them entertained since my son returned after a while. My mother was from the Anaheim region, so I made light flavored dishes. I made a vegetable stew and boiled some fish. She is from the Palm Springs region, so she thought they were too bland and didn't taste good. It's a pretty bad dish. Is there more meat or something? I'm sorry. I grew up near the sea, so I know how to cook fish but not meat. You had a very poor diet, didn't you? She said, dismissing my modesty. But I wasn't impoverished. I barely got back at her. I'm not sure how you define poor, but we weren't poor. My son, who was standing nearby, unusually took my side. But it looks poor because there are only vegetables and fish. This vegetable soup was made from instant tofu and dried seaweed. Her arrogance was unending. I don't make ready-made meals. I make it by myself. I was so enraged that I retorted angrily. But, Mom, her family's meat dishes are excellent. Palm Springs has many brands of elite beef, and I'm now a big fan of it. I didn't understand what my son was thinking. He reversed his earlier opinion and followed up with his own wife. Her family, by the way, is living in a well-known area in Palm Springs for its elite beef. Please cut the elite local beef. It's easy to cut with chopsticks and melts in your mouth. I apologize. You usually eat the best one. It's quite expensive, so it's not for you. She giggled as she put her hand over her mouth. I couldn't help but laugh at her. One day, when I had almost forgotten about such things, I was invited to Anna's parents' home. Because it was the end of summer and there were few tourists, I was asked if I wanted to come. It was my son's idea this time. I accepted the invitation because I had no plans and had not had the opportunity to visit Palm Springs. Despite the fact that it was an invitation, I brought some sweets from my long-established Irvine shop as a gift. Don't worry about it. I get tired of eating so much. But since I'm here, I'll receive it. Anna's sarcasm irritated me, but this is my in-laws' home. Except for me, everyone was an enemy. My in-laws' house was as beautiful as ever. They had renovated the garden and created a pond in which the carp swam gracefully. The carp cost approximately $10 million. They're few in number, but I chose quality over quantity. I counseled them. His wife looked overjoyed. I was reminded of how much she shows off things. My son and his wife invited me to a luxury hot spring hotel nearby. I enjoyed their magnificent hot spring facilities, as well as the pride and joy of fine Kobe beef. I think I would have enjoyed it even more if there were none of her usual sarcastic comments. Then there was the time when we went to my in-laws' house to say thank you and goodbye, and we were all drinking tea together. Thank you very much for your assistance this time. I was able to enjoy hot spring and delicious food because of you. My thank you speech changed into a terrible situation. There's no need to thank me for that. His wife seemed to be preparing for a battle. My son has been blessed with a wonderful family, and as his mother, I am grateful. Thank you very much. I said something that I had no intention of saying. My main concern is for you. I was concerned when I saw your house. Do you live with your pension? That should be enough for a normal life. But won't it eventually run out and force you to come to my parents' house for assistance? I'd appreciate it if you could refrain. I have never considered it. No, it could happen anytime soon, could it? So I'd better get it figured out while I still could. She got in the main talk. Can you sort this out? What do you mean? I'm not even a monster. I invited you here to have one last good time with your son. Did you like it? Yes, it was enjoyable. That makes me happy. So, I'm going to cut off a relationship with you once and for all. What? What do you mean? We would be greatly inconvenienced if you became a beggar, so we would prefer that you became a stranger. Beggar? Stranger? I repeated her words because I didn't understand what she meant. That's why I'm asking you to abandon us now. Do you get what I'm saying? I was enraged by her condescending attitude, but I managed to keep it under control. I realized what you meant. If you wish that, I will do so. She was relieved by my understanding response. Don't worry, I've already prepared the bus fare for your return trip. Bye then. She continued sarcastically until the end. Anyway, I just want to thank you for what you did this time. Thank you a lot. I returned to Irvine after leaving those dismissive words. I was furious at what my son and his wife had done to me, but I didn't take any action. Then, in an attempt to de-stress, I traveled to Beverly Hills, a city I adore. I've stopped sending money to my son for good since then. I had been giving him some of the dividends from my father's stock as pocket money, but I had no choice but to stop when he told me he was going to distance himself from me. My son begged me to keep giving him money, but I refused, saying that I would no longer support him because we broke off our relationship. Apparently, he doesn't inform his wife that I have sent him money. Anna was holding his wallet, and apparently, he was spending money from me on anime merchandise. When they got married, Anna threw all of his prized possessions away, and then he gradually began collecting them again. Then, I heard that Anna's father had passed out. Fortunately, he survived, but due to his stroke, he was unable to continue his work. And my son and his wife have assumed the roles of family governor and president. My daughter-in-law's family is quite wealthy, but the company's management was aggressive and unpopular. Since my son and his wife took over the company's management has been plagued. Clients were dissatisfied with the way the company has been run and have stopped doing business with them. I would normally have gone to see him because he was my daughter-in-law's father, but because I had been cut off from them, I did not. Anna has a similar personality to her father, so she will probably most likely conduct herself in the same way. However, she does not appear to have much business acumen in my opinion. I was concerned about her future because she is selfish and looks down on others. The company's sales have fallen as expected, and the new business she started has failed to materialize, leaving them with nothing but more debt. Sales of high-end furniture, the company's mainstay, remained slow, and it was clear that the company as a whole would lose money in the future. I was concerned, but I decided to wait and see what happened. The company then conducted a major reorganization in which the entire board of directors was replaced. My son, who became the new president, called for the main business to be downsized and new divisions to be established. I'm not sure about the specifics, but it seems that the decision was made by Anna, who is the company's largest shareholder. My son is a representative director, but he seems to have gone unnoticed. It was definitely her way of doing things. However, this was a big failure. Sales in the main business operations plummeted, and the new division performed far below expectations. The stock price dropped significantly as the company's performance deteriorated, and the company's survival became doubtful as more and more employees who had given up on the company began to resign. I had been watching the stock price, but it kept falling. Dividends were no longer paid, and the quarterly reports and stock firms' general comments were depressing. The company may be delisted soon. If the stock is delisted, it will be impossible to buy and sell shares on the market, and raising funds will be extremely difficult. Banks are unlikely to extend loans, so the only option is for them to liquidate their holdings. Her parents own a number of local forests and other properties, but they are not expected to be worth much because they are in a rural area. Still, at the end of the day, they had no choice but to sell them. I can't be bothered because I'm cut off from them. I carried on with my life in the same as before. My son and his wife then contacted me several times for some reason, but I ignored them because I didn't need them. Then there was the time I was on my annual sightseeing tour of Beverly Hills. admiring the autumn leaves. The mushrooms this year were smaller, possibly due to the weather, but the flavor was richer and the taste was excellent. It soothed my heart when combined with the colorful scenery of the autumn leaves outside. While I was enjoying Beverly Hills autumn scenery and food, I received a call from one of the staff members. "There's a visitor here to see you." Huh? I don't have an appointment, and only a few people know I'm in Beverly Hills. What is the visitor's name? Yes, Smith. Her name is Anna Smith. Smith? I paused for a moment, but it hit me right away. I know her, but we're taking a break from each other for some reason. Please ask her to leave. Yes. She is very eager to see you. She even got down on her knees. How should I deal with this? Well, there's nothing I can do. Send her to the guest room, please. I'll return once I've finished getting ready. I returned to my room and changed into something more appropriate. It's been a long time. I understand your family, and I have been cutting off our relationship. What made you come here? I had no idea you came this far. I greeted her calmly. It's been a long time. Thank you so much for forgiving me for all the disrespect I've shown you in the past. What is this? I'm not forgiving you. I only came to see you on a whim. Misunderstandings would make you difficult to think. No. My words were too strong. I apologize. Her face is flushed from the nervousness and my cold attitude. I've heard that you own this mansion. Can you tell me how you got this? She should have heard something about my true identity somewhere. It was clear to me that she had come to me because she was desperate for money. That's none of your business, I said as I smiled and dismissed her. This is my father's villa. It was given to me by my father, I said after a brief pause. I made the decision to speak clearly. Oh, who is your father? John Scott. He's deceased, but don't you know him? What? Oh, the previous president of Scott Trading. Does that mean you're the former president's daughter? This new revelation has made her shocked. Let me explain this in detail. I am his daughter of his ex-wife, and I use my mother's surname. My half-brother is the current president of the company. My mother has already died, and I have been taking distance myself from the Scott family. Because my personality is not suited to business, I delegated company management to my younger brother. I wanted to live quietly for the rest of my life, so I received a portion of the company's shares as an advancement from my father and got this house. I see. She seemed she understood. Let me tell you about my current financial situation. As an inexperienced stockbroker, I do not buy or sell stocks, but I do receive dividends twice a year. Dividends are paid to me twice a year, which covers my expenses. To begin with, I don't want to live a fancy life. This house is managed by my brother. He has a maid stationed in the house, so I can use her at any time. She was almost speechless. Why are you here, by the way? I just wanted to double check that I'm properly abandoned. Am I right? Yes. As you are aware, our family business is struggling, and I was hoping you would be willing to assist us. She begged desperately. What's the point of this? I asked with my plain expression. When my father became ill, my husband took over as president, but he was inexperienced. As a relative, I thought it would be better if I took charge, so I assisted him in various ways. Do you mean that my son was merely an ornament for you to wield real power? That's exactly what I'm saying. At this point, she must have concluded that her bizarre evasions were futile. Her explanation was accurate, though. What happened next? The product mix change that I had initiated had failed, and we were saddled with massive losses and debt, and I did everything I could to help. So you're saying you've turned to me? That's correct. I let out a sigh. Do you want me to assist you with that? Yes. I'd be delighted to assist. Do you remember what you told me? You will isolate me from your family because I'm a nuisance to you if I beg. What exactly are you saying and doing now that you said it would be a bother if I begged? Oh, it's for money. That is known as begging in this world. You are correct. Right? I told her with a smile. I will decline. I don't want you to dismiss me. You've treated me so poorly, and now you want me to assist you. I apologize. I'm sorry, but I need... She bends her knees and rubs her chin against the floor. I didn't pay attention to her and said, I am not a person who is capable of giving alms to a beggar. Please leave. Please. The bank will no longer lend to me, and I have nowhere to rely. She kept getting down on her knees, and she didn't care that the hem of her dress was a mess. Please leave. I sincerely wish you the best. The visitor is leaving. Send her to the entrance. And for the last time, sprinkle some salt on them, I told her and my maid. The 4 maids dragged her out of the room, standing her up and holding her from both sides as she remained on her knees and refused to move. I went back to my room, returned my gaze to the blazing autumn leaves, and softly murmured, I just want to live in peace. Later, I knew that her company had gone bankrupt. She gave up her land and house to settle down, and with the little money she had left, she rented a small, rented house. And they spent days working part-time. I'm still living in an apartment in Irvine. When my son married and moved out, he bought a cat for me because he knew I'd be lonely. He is Dime, a Maine Coon. He is a long-haired cat, so he is difficult to care for, but he enjoys being brushed and is always quiet. Seeing his comfortable face makes me happy as well. I'd like to go to Beverly Hills. Why don't we go in the winter like we always go in the fall? It's too hot for you in the summer. He began biting my hand sweetly while I was petting him. Hey! He licks a spot on my hand, where he bit me as if he apologized. You're so cute. Time had already won my heart. Then I returned to Beverly Hills. Outside, it was snowing. Dime is in my arms, staring out the window with me. You were only the size of my palm when you first arrived at my house, but you've grown so much. I thought he was quiet, but Dime fallen asleep before I noticed. It's true what they say about a sleeping child growing up, but if you grow any larger, I won't be able to hold you. I looked out once more, brushing the tip of Dime's nose as he slept. It had been a quiet, snowy night. I was nodding off as well. I was wondering if there would be a lovely snowy landscape tomorrow morning. I went to bed thinking about this. Dime is also sleeping next to me. As I closed my eyes, I told myself that I was going to have a good dream. I closed my eyes and thought,